franktalks.com.
Relationships, sex, passion with Dr. Laurie Betito. Hear the show live weeknights 10 to 11 on CJAD 800.
Welcome to Passion, a show all about love, sex, and relationships. I'm Dr. Laurie Betito. Tonight, our regular monthly feature we call Dating Dilemmas. I'm joined by Frank Kermit. He is a dating coach, a best-selling author, an educator, and a relationship columnist for the West End Times newspaper. You hear him weekly, too, here because he gives out weekly relationship workshops every Saturday night and tells us about them every Friday night. That happens from 7 to 9 p.m. every Saturday night. And tonight, we always focus on one issue, and tonight's issue is about popping the question and what questions to ask next. So really moving a relationship to the next level. And we can talk about when are we ready, when do you know, how you do it, are grand gestures the thing, is that what is necessary, and do you need to, completely bowl over your future partner. We want to hear your stories as well. How did you know when it was time to pop the question, to propose marriage? Have you ever been proposed to and said no? Why did you say no? Have you been waiting for your partner to ask you and your partner keeps putting it off? We want to hear from you tonight. 514-790-0991, StarTalk, star 8255 on your cell, or you can text us at 514-800. Hey, Frank, welcome back.
Thank you, Dr. Laurie. Always a pleasure to be here.
That's such a big thing, the asking to marry. I often get asked, when is the right time? How long should you wait before you get engaged? How to do it, and a lot of questions around that. But that varies because it all really depends on the age.
It depends on the age. It depends on the people, how well they actually know each other, if they have life experience so that they can properly test their potential future partner. Do they know what to test for? Do they even know what kind of future they want? Or are they kind of just floating through? So it depends on a lot of factors.
How long did you wait?
26 hours.
No way. You didn't pop the question after 26 hours.
Well, no. What happened was that met my wife. Our first date was 36 hours, but it was hour 26 where we decided to get married, and we called each other husband and wife the first time. But I officially proposed about 2 to 3 months later in front of my whole family.
Oh, wow. And how old were you?
Oh, geez. I was in my early 30s at the time. Okay.
See, it's interesting because you talk to somebody in their 20s versus somebody in their 30s. My husband proposed to me after 2 months. We're together 19 years now. So, it was 2 months, and we got married within 9 months, and we had got pregnant within 12 months, So it happened very quickly. But, would I give that advice to a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old? Not necessarily.
If someone has not gone through a process of self-actualization, then you should tell people to put it off, wait at least a couple of years so that they can go through some life experiences together. Everything from, are you able to take care of your partner when your partner is sick? Are you able to tough out the tough times with your partner when the pressure is on? Job loss, death in the family. Are you able to see your partner at your partner's worst and still want to build a future with them?
Right. You got to see people in many different contexts in order to do that, especially when you're younger.
Yes.
When you're older and you can evaluate better because you have that life experience, I think it's a little bit of a different situation.
Exactly. And I think that when people are younger, they still are learning about themselves. Never mind trying to figure out their partner. They're still trying to figure out their own boundaries. They're still trying to figure out what kind of a future do I want. They may not even be aware of all the options available to them.
Right. So how do you know? How do we evaluate? I guess we can start with, how do we evaluate that person is the one? I know that's a very big question, but a lot of people, do wonder, how do I know? Am I making a mistake? Is this the one? Should I wait? Should I play the field more?
I think the issue is that people look at how they feel about the person. And that's a good thing, but it's not the only thing. You actually have to look at, can I build a future with this person? Do I know how I want to raise my kids if I want to have children? How many children do I want? Where do I want to live? What kind of lifestyle do I want day to day? And once you have these answers for yourself, that's when you can properly judge whether or not that person is going to be able to support it.
And has the same answers to those same questions. But those are the questions that you have to talk about before you even get to the altar.
Yes, and some couples, though, they rush in because of the romance involved. There's a wonderful emotional pull, a definite issue of attachment. They get right into it. They say, yes, we're going to get married. And then that's why I say, well, have you discussed these things before you actually get married? And everything from your financial status to your past relationships to do whatever skeletons you may have in your closet. If there's something that you cannot talk to your partner about, well, that's exactly what you need to discuss right here, right now with your partner.
Right.
Because if they can't handle that, they're not going to be able to handle it later on when they've invested even more into you.
And if you doubt that your partner can handle it, there's a problem there as well.
That's a red flag.
Right.
It's a red flag.
Yeah, and I see that so much. I can't begin to tell you how many couples never have these conversations and really get hooked into the romantic notion. You know, I feel love and that's it.
It's all going to work out. We love each other. Love is enough. Actually, no, love is not enough. There are couples who truly love each other but can't make it work because they're not compatible enough. Then you have those couples that they may not have the same romantic, passionate feelings, but they're so compatible and they at least have a certain mutual respect and they like each other as people that they can make a marriage will last 30, 40, 50 years until
And
death.
they can ignite some passion.
Exactly.
Yeah. We got a text message that says the best way to know when to get married is to be sure to listen to friends and family and yield to their pressure. Sarcasm. I'm glad you wrote that in. Yeah, sometimes listening to, and we could talk about that, if your friends or family are very opposed, sometimes you gotta ask yourself why. And we'll talk about how much stock do we put into what our friends and family actually think about our partner or our choice. We're going to continue dating dilemmas. We're going to continue talking about popping the question, what questions to ask, how to know, all of that. We'd love to hear some of your stories right here on Passion on CJAD.
Need help with love, sex, dating, or relationship issues? Help from Frank Kermit, the best-selling author and Canada's most international relationship coach, is only a click away at franktalks.com. franktalks.com.
You're listening to Passion with Dr. Laurie Betito on CJAD 800.
Dating dilemmas here on Passion, and tonight we have, every dating dilemmas is Frank Kermit, who is a dating coach, a best-selling author and educator. He's also the relationship columnist for the West End Times newspaper. We're talking about popping the question. Would love to hear how you did it. Did you ever turn down a proposal of marriage? Are you waiting for your partner to propose? What's the best way? What's the worst way to propose? 514-790-0991, star talk, star 8255, or you can text us at 514-800. We've got Karen on the line. Hi, Karen.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Okay. Hello, you two. From my experience, I'd like to say that if you and your partner have never discussed anything about marriage, when you do propose, don't do it in front of others.
Yeah, that's right. If you've never discussed it, can you imagine? And then you do it. It's like then the person feels maybe obliged to say yes, and then the regrets and the all of that happens after.
Seeing their faces when you say, you know, like I'll think about it. And when a person does propose to you, that's the moment that your relationship changes one way or another. Because it's either going to go forward or it's going to start to
deteriorate.
Yes.
That's a good point, too. That's a very good point.
You can never go back after that moment.
Yeah, once the words come out, you can't take them back. No,
right.
I didn't mean it. Really. Yeah, that wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Karen, thanks for bringing up some great points.
Okay.
All right, bye-bye. Do you want to add to that?
Those are actually wonderful points. If you ask somebody to marry you, you better have a pretty good inkling that they're going to say yes.
Yeah.
And if you haven't talked about it, if you don't already know that the answer is going to be yes, you don't ask.
Also, the grand gestures. Like, can you imagine people who do it at a ball game or at I don't know, whatever, in front of like cameras? And how is the other person who's being asked? How are they supposed to say no?
Sometimes that's part of the manipulation.
Oh.
I'm going to put you in that situation so that you're more likely to say yes if for no other reason than you don't want to look bad.
Well, that's really sneaky.
It's very sneaky.
And that can't be good for the relationship anyway, so.
Well, if a person has a fear of abandonment and they're going to, they know that, well, the person I'm dating doesn't ever want to look bad publicly and so on, I'll get the yes and then I'll build on that. And that's really not the way to go. If you have to coerce somebody to want to marry you, then it's better not to be married.
Yeah. What about, we were talking earlier about family pressures. Sometimes there's the family pressure to get married, and I've heard many situations of, especially women, younger women dating stricter parents, and the kids felt, after having dated a couple of years, even though they were only 19, 20, 21, that they felt the pressure that they should get married. And it was a way to get out of the house as well. And then 20 years later, those marriages have fallen apart because they realize I married for the wrong reasons. I don't have those feelings. Or you grow up, like from 20 to 30, and or from 20 to 40, there's a lot of changes that can happen.
One of the rules that I have, anytime your friends or family want to get involved in giving you advice for your personal relationships, always remember they're not telling you what's best for you, they're telling you what's best for them.
Yeah, but as a parent, sometimes you see things and you're not necessarily doing it what you want, what's best for your kids.
Right, but even as a parent, I want what's best for my son. But that's going to make me biased for what he thinks is going to be best for him. My role as a parent, at least this is my own view, being a parent, I want to get my son to the point where he can make decisions for himself.
Of course.
That's where my focus is. And if I've raised him the way I believe to be right,
he will make the right choices.
He'll make the right choices for himself, even if I disagree with them. I have to trust that I'm raising him to be an independent thinker.
Right. You're absolutely right about that.
When people raise their children, however, to be obedient and not necessarily to be independent thinkers, this is where they feel they need to step in and say, well, no, I'm going to tell you who you should marry because I'm not comfortable with your new partner, and I'm not happy about this situation.
Right. However, as a parent, I think we can point out, we can make our kids, even our adult children, think about the elements of the relationship. Have you thought about this, and how does he treat you, and or how does she treat you, and do you think this is healthy, and what do you think is a healthy relationship, and get them to actually think, not tell them you shouldn't do this, but more about that doesn't look like it's such a healthy relationship, and here's why I don't think it's healthy.
We also have to ask, is this a situation where the child has asked for that advice? Or is this being a parent saying, I'm going to go in and give you advice that you didn't ask for?
It's such a fine line. Such a fine line.
Well, in the situations that I've seen, the only time I think a parent needs to step in is when the behaviors of the child and the partner, and when I say child, I'm talking
about
an adult child and a partner, when their behaviors are toxic and they're affecting the parental household. That's when a parent has to say, listen, I'm going to talk to you, not because you're my son or you're my daughter, and I'm talking to you because I have a certain boundary about behaviors in my home. And if you're going to come into my home, my adult child and your partner or not, you're going to behave by certain boundaries.
Yeah, unfortunately what ends up happening is, fine, we won't come over anymore because, and then the whatever abusive stuff can go on outside of that. But as a parent, you try to protect your children, and you don't want to see them get hurt. So you step in when it doesn't matter how old they are, they're always your children, and that's where it becomes difficult as a parent to keep your mouth shut. Even though I know, most parents really should with their adult children, but it's difficult. That's all. Just wanted to point that out.
It's going to be very difficult, but this is where you would have to ask the question, what did I do raising my kid that would make it okay for them to stay in that situation?
Yeah. Okay, but at that point it's too late.
Yeah.
Dating dilemmas tonight, and when to move it to the next level, meaning marriage and proposals and all of that. And maybe we could even talk about the quasi-proposal. In other words, would you like to live together is another form of proposal. We'll talk about that and more coming up here on Passion.
Need help with love, sex, dating and relationships? Visit franktalks.com.
What do you do when you feel like a fool? When your heart has been broken again? Pick up the phone or get onto Skype and talk on a private session. Yeah, get a little help from Frank Talks. Whoa, whoa, get by with a little help from Frank Talks. You gotta try a little help from Frank Talks. What do you do when your love goes away? Try coaching one-on-one. How do I sign up to turn things around? Just sign up at franktalks.com. Yeah, get by with help from Frank Talks. I get by with a little help from Frank Talks. Time to try a little help from Frank Talks. The best rate going around. But it costs a lot of money. Oh, the world every cent that you will put down. Yeah. Frank Talks.com. Oh, you got to go to yes, we're certain, just read the reviews. Frank knows his stuff, and Frank's never goods. Good love can soon come to you. Frank Talks.com. Oh, yes, he does. Frank Talks.com. Yeah, yeah. Frank Talks.com. Frank Talks.com.
You're listening to Passion with Dr. Laurie Betito on CJAD 800.
Dating dilemmas tonight. Frank Kermit is in studio with me, as he is every month for this feature, and we talk about dating issues, and tonight it is about the proposal. We got a text. Do you think it's better to date one person at a time or many women? I find it hard to date more than one person, but this is not working for me. Help.
I think that until you've made an exclusive monogamous commitment to someone that is publicly presented, you should be dating as many people as possible to figure out what it is you do want, what it is you don't want, and also figuring out who's right for you.
We may have a different opinion about this. The way I wasn't able to, like, if I, let's say, met somebody in my dating years many moons ago, let's get back into my memory, I would, let's say, meet one person and I would go on a date with that person. The next night I wouldn't go on a date with another. I would wait and see if it worked out with that person. So if we had a second date and a third date, and by after a third or fourth date, it was kind of more of a relationship. I wouldn't be able to date more than one. I couldn't focus. It would have to be, I'd have to date, eliminate, and then move on that way.
If you're more monogamous, in terms of you're very traditionally monogamous, that is a good way to proceed. One of the challenges with that, however, is that people might stick with the person that they're with, even though they may know this is not the right person for me, but I'm too scared to be alone.
Oh, yeah, that's a different story.
And
I wasn't scared to be alone, so
no.
They didn't last very long, but
right.
I just couldn't.
You should also consider that it's different for men and women.
Okay.
Because women are on the receiving end of sexual attention. So women are on the receiving end of approaches. Women are on the receiving end of sexual attention. So when she wants some company, all she has to do is say, I want some company. And there's going to be a guy saying, okay.
Right.
If a guy wants company, he has to go and pursue. He has to project sexual attention. He has to go up and approach. He has to get shot down. He's going to get rejected, but he has to keep approaching and keep approaching.
So guys have it tougher than girls.
They have it tougher in the sense that they struggle to get that initial sexual attention because they're on the projecting end. They have to chase. Here's what happens. Guy starts dating a girl. Girl says, sure, I'll go out with you. But there might be two girls in the same week who say, sure, I'll go out with you. Would he have to say no to the second one when the first one has said yes? They maybe go out on a couple of dates, and by the time he says, oh, you know what? It wasn't working out with the first one after 3 dates. Let me go back to the other one who's interested. She's on the receiving end of sexual attention. But
somewhere else.
And his opportunity is lost. My feeling is that unless someone has made that kind of commitment to you, they haven't earned your attention. They haven't earned your time. So you date as many people as possible until someone earns a level of commitment where you won't date somebody else.
And you have to have that discussion, right? It's about, okay, we're dating now, so what does this mean to you? What does this mean to me? Do we date exclusively?
One of the ways that people get hurt is that they assume, wow, we've been dating for a while and I feel so committed to you, and since I'm not dating anybody else, you shouldn't be dating anybody else either.
Or they think they're not, but it hasn't been said, so then Exactly. They find out they are and all of that. We're talking about dating dilemmas tonight. Once a month, Frank Kermit joins us, a dating coach and relationship columnist for the West End Times. We'll continue this discussion on the other side of the news here on Passion.
If you need help with your relationships, my buddy Frank, he's got some tips. Just go to franktalks.com. His advice is better than your mom's. He knows what you're going through, Frank has been there too. So log on to franktalks.com. franktalks.com.
franktalks.com. Frank Talks. franktalks.com. Frank Talks. franktalks.com. franktalks.com. Frank Talks. franktalks.com. Frank Talks. franktalks.com. Frank Talks. franktalks.com. Frank Talks. franktalks.com. franktalks.com. Frank Talks.
listening to Passion with Dr. Laurie Betito on CJAD 800.
Dating dilemmas tonight on Passion. We're talking about popping the question. Okay, here's a scenario, Frank. Frank Kermit is in studio with me, as he is every month. So you're having a nice romantic dinner, and your partner looks like he's about to pop the question, but the question is, would you like to move in with me? You're thinking all along, ooh, he's going to ask me to marry him. Would you like to move in with me? That's like not quite a proposal.
No, it's not a proposal, but it's definitely moving towards that if we're dealing with somebody who believes in marriage. Now, if we're dealing with someone who doesn't believe in marriage, then you can wait all you want for him to pop the question. If he doesn't believe in marriage, the question's not going to get popped. So don't assume that, okay, well, if we move in together, then he'll eventually want to pop the question.
So how do you find out beforehand? Before you move in, because the statistics are not so good, right? Yeah. We know that couples who move in together without being engaged, without plans for marriage, are like 10 times likelier to separate or divorce than couples who
well, they go in with
go
the
and
expectation.
engage.
They go in with the expectation that this is not forever, that we're going to see, we're going to try, and we get to know. If you are the type of person that you want to be married, and the person that you're with says, let's live together, you simply have to state your expectation and then set an end date. You have to say, well,
you have to set the end date. Yeah.
You have to say, okay, well, we'll live together, but we're living together as a prelude to us getting married. Now, that's what I want. Is that what you want? If the other person says, we'll see, I don't know, don't move in. You have incompatible values. If the other person says, okay, let's live together for 2 years, and if after 2 years we're still living together and we'll still get together, we're going to get married. Okay, we'll make that our official engagement, and then we'll get married sometime after that. And always try to set a date, at least a season. And if you can't even agree on that, that's the sign that says this is not going to go long term. So,
and that might be a sign of just the person being commitment phobic, and really not interested in going that route for whatever reason. But waiting around for them to change their mind and hoping that moving in is going to lead to that. It's the old thing that moms say, well, why should I buy the cow if I get the milk for free, Well,
if you're going to sit around and wait for somebody to come around, I usually feel that there's a fear of intimacy on both parts. Because someone who's not afraid of intimacy wouldn't stick around waiting for somebody to smarten up. They would say, that's not good enough for me. I want somebody who's ready to go. Right. And I will find someone else to replace that person.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, now what if you're with somebody and you've been with somebody for years and you're waiting and nothing happens. No question popped.
Did you ever say, I'm waiting for you to pop the question?
So you recommend that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Look, if you can't talk about some, hard subjects, or if you have a fear of conflict, forget about trying to make a long-term relationship work. You have to be comfortable enough to tell your partner anything and everything. And if you're too afraid to say, well, if I say it, my partner might get, annoyed and want to leave.
And they're not for you.
That's not the partner for you.
Right.
Everybody deserves, and I'm going to get on a high horse here. Everybody deserves to be wanted and desired and loved by someone that they're with.
Absolutely.
Okay? Everybody deserves to be cherished by someone. And if you're with someone that doesn't really want you, it's up to you to say, I deserve better, and I'm going to go find it. One of the things I teach at the weekly relationship workshop I do on Saturday nights, I go in there and I say, look, I'm an overweight guy. I don't have a lot of things going for me, but I still think I'm the best option out there for anybody to want to date. And everybody has to feel that way about themselves. It doesn't matter what you have going against you. It doesn't matter your health, your financial status, whatever your past is. You are the best option out there for the right person for you.
Right.
And until you take on that attitude of feeling good about yourself and knowing that you bring some value to the table, you're always going to struggle to find someone to see value in you. Before others can love you, you have to love yourself.
Right. You need to value yourself before you can feel valued by somebody else.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's a big life lesson for everybody. It's a tough one because a lot of people, unfortunately, grow up not loving themselves for many reasons. I mean, listen, there's a lot of dysfunction out there, a lot of dysfunctional families, but it is still our responsibility as adults to get to the bottom of our issues so we can start to love ourselves.
One of the things I also teach is that if you want to see how much somebody loves themselves, look at the way that they allow their partners to love them.
Explain a bit more.
Okay. If I hate myself, I will allow my partner to treat me badly.
That's true.
If I love myself, I will expect my partner to treat me well.
Right. And you will not tolerate your partner treating you badly.
Exactly. Not because I love my partner any more or less, but because I love myself and I expect to be treated a certain way.
Right. I was having this very discussion with a client just tonight about that, actually. You know, whose wife has low self-esteem and accusing the husband of being very, controlling and abusive, and this going on and pushing, I'm depressed because you're abusive, but the reality is that the two matched up because he's able to easily push her around because she already had low self-esteem and didn't feel, that she deserved better treatment, I suppose.
Sometimes people have complementary dysfunctions, and that's what makes their relationship work.
Which is why you got to work on your crap. That's really important. You got to work on your issues.
Work on yourself before you get into those serious relationships. And that's why I say go out and date as many people as possible. If for no other reason, it'll bring whatever your issues are to the surface. You'll know what it is you need to work on. Why? Because you're dating so many people. If you have 7 or 8 people say, yeah, I don't want to date you because you've got this issue. Well, if it's one person telling you, you can say, that person's, just being silly. If it's 2 people, well, I'm just unlucky, I'm in a phase. When almost every person that you're dating is pointing something out, it's a repeating behavior pattern on your part, you have the evidence that, okay, this is what I need to work on, so this bad stuff just stops happening in my life.
Right, and rather than say, I just have bad luck.
Yeah, well,
a lot of people say that. A lot of people say, I just have bad luck in love, or bad luck in choice of partners, but it's a choice that you're making of those partners.
You don't choose who you fall in love with, but you choose
I believe
who
you do. I believe you can choose who you fall in love with.
Really, you can choose who you feel attraction towards, who you think
Well, you can
hot.
feel attraction to somebody, but you can allow yourself to fall in love with that person or not.
I think that if you can feel something for someone, you still have the ability to choose whether or not you pursue it.
Right, and that's what determines whether you fall in love or not.
Oh, okay.
I don't think you fall in love instantly. I think you can have attraction instantly.
Unless someone maybe feels a certain attachment where they sense, if I'm feeling an emotional pull, that must equal love, which is a separate issue altogether.
Well, but it does. That initial pull is attraction. It's not love. It can't be love. Love evolves. Love takes time. Love is behavior. Love isn't just that one feeling.
Okay.
So you can feel attraction, but to evolve into love, that becomes a choice. You'd have to pursue it in order to fall in love.
This reminds me of a conversation I had with someone where he was saying that the history of love, at least the romantic love, was originally lust. Where if somebody says, I was in love with this person, what they really meant at that time was they lusted after someone that they couldn't have. Usually it was arranged marriages, and they didn't choose who they ended up in relationships with, but over time they would develop an affection. But if they felt something for someone that they, from afar, they called it love, when by today's standards, we would call that lust.
Right. And that's attraction, which you can always have attractions to people, but it's what you choose to do about it. That's why, in terms of infidelities, for example, let's say you marry one person, you commit to being monogamous with one person. It doesn't mean you'll never be attracted to anybody else.
Absolutely.
But you decide what you do about that.
That's right.
So if you allow that attraction to evolve into something, into a connection, into an attachment, into an emotional connection, then that could evolve into love.
And one of the things related to our topic of popping the question and then seeing if you're still compatible is the choices you make today are the truths and secrets that you're going to have to share tomorrow with your partner. And when you're making some choices that today are end up being the skeletons in your closet, can your future partner handle your skeletons? And sometimes a future partner won't be able to handle it. So you have to be very mindful of the choices you make and who you choose to involve yourself with.
Yeah, because you're creating skeletons along the way.
Always.
Right.
And everybody's got skeletons.
Of course. But we all make choices, and sometimes we make bad choices, and we have to take responsibility for our bad choices.
And hopefully you can find a partner out there who's open-minded enough and non-judgmental enough that has the same value system you do, that can say, well, I'm okay with whatever skeleton you have in your closet and whatever is in your past, because maybe they have something similar and they reach the same level of growth as you have.
And we can talk about some of those skeletons that we should talk about, because I've heard some stories where really important skeletons were not shared, and which could have had some serious repercussions on, like a history of sexual abuse, for example. It has repercussions on the sexual relationship. It has repercussions on, depending on who the molester was. I heard one story where the wife did not tell the husband that her father had molested her, and allowed their daughter to be in the presence of that same abuser.
Wow.
I'm sure had he known, he would have never allowed his daughter to be there.
Not.
So there's one example, and I've heard this several times. And that to me is it's a big thing to keep from your partner. So we can talk about some of the skeletons, that we should be sharing with our partners before we go down the altar.
Need help with love, sex, dating, and relationship issues? Help from Frank Kermit, the best-selling author and Canada's most international relationship coach, is only a click away at franktalks.com. Coaching available in person, by phone, and by Skype. For singles, couples, and alternative lifestyles, franktalks.com.
franktalks.com. franktalks.com. franktalks.com. franktalks.com. Frank
You're listening to Passion with Dr. Laurie Betito on CJAD 800.
Dating dilemmas. We're talking about popping the question, moving it to that level. We talked about once you pop the question, you better be sure that you have shared all your skeletons. So that's what you said, Frank, right? You very much believe in that, as I do as well. Now, the kinds of people are thinking skeletons. What are we talking about? What kinds of things? Like I talked about the history of sexual abuse, I believe is an important one.
I usually believe that the sexual skeletons, if we want to call them that, are the last things you share.
Okay.
Because you want to share a bunch of the other skeletons in your closet. Usually they're less damaging if people know about them publicly. So I always tell people, start with your financial skeletons. Do you have a bankruptcy in your background?
Mm-hmm.
Do you maybe have $40 or $50 or $60 or $70,000 of debt that your partner may sign on for and accumulate? Do you have a debt that is joint with one of your exes that you're still on the hook for, so that if your ex doesn't pay it, you're going to have to pay it?
Have you been married before? Are you paying alimony? Are you paying child support? Do you have other children?
So if you have, one of the things I did with my wife when we met and we decided we wanted to get married is that I showed her all of my debts. I brought out all the documents and here's my credit card bills and so on. You got to know what I'm bringing to this and whatever deficits I may bring to this. Now, if somebody can't get through the financial hardships, chances are they're not going to be able to handle like the other stuff.
No.
I always start off with financials because finances can change. Over the course of 5 or 10 years, even a bankruptcy
gets erased
or it doesn't affect you.
Right.
It can affect you sometimes depending on the circumstance. But over the course of your life, your financial status can and likely will change.
Right.
A good job, a win in the lottery, a different education, that can change. Then you move on to, personal, a catch-all, family history of anything, your health. Are you sick with anything? And if you're perfectly healthy, what about your parents? What about your lineage? Do you have heart problems? Do you have diabetes that runs in your family? What's going on in that family history that you may pass on to your children?
What are the genetics, yeah.
What are the genetics? Now, if you go through the financial stuff and the person says, okay, I'm willing to sign on, and you go through the health, okay, I'm still willing to sign on, but then you go through that personal grab bag of your idiosyncrasies, your pet peeves, and all those other things about your personality and your family relations and your friends and who you happen to be friends with, that matters to some people. Are you friends with your ex? And are you friends with people that you were previously involved with in other capacities? And how do you work? What's your lifestyle? Once you get through all of that, if at that point the person says, I'm still on board, that's when it's time to share sexual histories, but not before. Now, once you start sharing a sexual history, look, you have to know whether or not your partner is going to be open-minded about it. We'll give an example like abortion, which is a pretty hot topic. Some people feel that abortion is wrong. Other people feel that it's a necessary evil, and some other people feel that it's okay. It's fine. It's a choice. Were you involved in an abortion? Meaning whether you had an abortion or someone that you were with. For the guys, child that
sexually transmitted infection.
Maybe the number of partners you've had. If you're still in contact with people who you were sexual with, was it a coworker? Were you involved with your former boss? Were you somebody's mistress? All these things are going to have to come up, because if they don't come up before you get married, at some point, if they come up after you get married, it's better your spouse hears it from you first.
Right. There is a sense of betrayal, even though it might have happened years before they ever came into the picture. It's like, well, why would you hide that from me? And why would you think you had to hide that from me? And if you hid that from me, what else are you hiding from me?
Exactly. Now let's look at a situation like friends with benefits. Let's say somebody in the couple was friends with benefits with someone who was part of their social circle, but nobody knew. It was very secret. When you're choosing to marry somebody, you better let your spouse know, or your spouse-to-be, and say, well, that person and I were friends with benefits. I want you to know, I want you to hear it from me, because if it comes out afterwards, I don't want you to feel that I was hiding anything.
Right. And there's a potential for discomfort, and there's all kinds of feelings that come out. Okay, let's go back to popping the question. What do you do? And I find it, men really have the responsibility in this. They're the ones who end up having to pop the question and getting rejected possibly. But what if the answer is no? I don't know if we have any statistics on that, because I don't think they exist. But what if you ask and your partner says no?
First thing you got to consider that this is the end of the relationship, because obviously there was a disconnect somewhere. If you're thinking that your partner is going to say yes and your partner says no, you're not on the same wavelength at all, and that's the red flag. It's not the no that's the problem. The no is the symptom of what's actually going on. So there's a red flag. You have to consider, okay, I'm going to get out of here. Now, some people might choose to say, well, okay, it's no for now, but I might say yes later, and we still have to work things out. If you're staying together with the understanding that the question is going to come up again.
Right.
And you want to work on some things before the yes happens. Now, if you're in that context, okay. But unless you have a specific plan where you're going to work through the things to get to that yes, then get out. Because staying with somebody who's not sure that they want to be with you is emotionally damaging for both people. Especially, however, for the person that wants the yes, but isn't going to get it. Staying in a situation where you have an affection for someone that doesn't return it can hurt you. And can make it difficult for you to really make yourself emotionally vulnerable for the right person that comes along in your future.
It's delicate. Wow. I can only imagine that level of rejection when you get to that point. And they say no.
Feeling.
Ooh la la.
It's a horrible feeling.
Yeah, I'll bet. We still have a few minutes. If you want to share some of your popping the question stories, then give us a call, 514-790-0991, or text us at 514-800. You're listening to Dating Dilemmas here on Passion on CJAD 800.
If you need help with your relationships, well, my buddy Frank here has got some tips. Just go to franktalks.com. His advice is better than your mom's, 'cause he knows what you are going through. Frank has been there too, so log on to franktalks.com, to franktalks.com.
franktalks.com, 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 franktalks.com. Oh, Frank Talks, Frank Talks, franktalks.com. Oh, Frank Talks, franktalks.com. Frank Talks, franktalks.com. Oh, Frank Talks, franktalks.com. Oh, Frank Talks, franktalks.com. Oh, Frank Talks, franktalks.com. Frank Talks, franktalks.com. Oh, Frank Talks, franktalks.com.
You're listening to Passion with Dr. Laurie Betito on CJAD 800.
We're talking about proposals, proposals of marriage, and some of the skeletons we share and what we have to know before we walk down the aisle. We got a text message. What if you have an STI, have already slept with the person, and only tell them once engaged? Is that a bad idea?
Well, if you're going to get engaged, you'd better tell them, and you'd better be ready to hear why you didn't share this with me before.
And if you didn't have safe sex, like, that person may not feel very respected.
Well, look, if you didn't have safe sex knowing you have an STI, you need to check yourself. You need to really look at why you would knowingly put somebody else at risk.
Yeah, that's just
that's wrong.
Yeah.
It's wrong.
It's wrong. So, yes, but you should tell them as soon as possible.
Yes. Now, if you've been having safe sex, and you've been dating for, it also depends how long you've been dating. If you've been dating for a couple of years, regularly having safe sex, and it never came up, there's a certain ethical question here. Mm-hmm. And, there's an argument, well, then if I let people know right away, they may not give me a chance. Well,
but it's their choice.
They need to make an informed choice.
Right, it's an informed choice. And especially if it's an ongoing STI, like herpes or something that is permanent,
yes,
or that stays with you through life. Okay, very quickly, hope I'm on time. My boyfriend and I have been together for a year, and he doesn't believe in marriage at all. I'm not even sure if he's the one, but is it okay to still date with that in mind?
You should date him, yes, but maybe once or twice a week at maximum. If you're not sure if he's the one and he doesn't believe in marriage, then you need to be free to find your potential soulmate if you believe in soulmates.
Or the one, anyway. Or the one you want to be with for life. Frank, thank you very much for always a very interesting discussion with you.
Dr. Laurie, I love doing Dating Dilemmas.
We'll speak to you again next month. Thank you to Brad Smith in Master Control. Thank you all for tuning tuning in and contributing to the program as well. Don't forget to look up Frank for his weekly workshops every Saturday night. Go to franktalks.com. The information will be right there for you.
Listen to Passion with Dr. Laurie Betito, live weeknights 10 to 11 on CJAD and CJAD.com.
Need help with love, sex, dating, and relationship issues? Help from Frank Kermit, the best-selling author and Canada's most international relationship coach, is only a click away at franktalks.com. Coaching is available in person, by phone, and by Skype for singles, couples, and alternative lifestyles. franktalks.com. Need help with love, sex, dating, and relationship issues? Help from Frank Kermit, the best-selling author and Canada's most international relationship coach, is only a click away at franktalks.com. Coaching is available in person, by phone, and by Skype for singles, couples, and alternative lifestyles. franktalks.com.